screen sharing. So the floor is now yours for the next 30 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Curry. And I just want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day to attend my final presentation. As Dr. Curry said, I'll be student teaching with Mr. Thomas Sturgis at Durant High School in Plant City. So phase one, who do I aspire to be as a teacher? First, I want to give you a little background on my journey to how I've got to where I am today. I grew up in Pinellas County and was a part of a small beach town called Indian Rocks Beach. In 8th grade, I was signing up for my high school classes and saw this, everyone was talking about this great class that you could take. We got to leave school for 2 periods of the day. And for me, that was like the winner. I was like, yes, I want to do this. So I put it, but I didn't want to take the full jump. So I put it as my last option of my electives. Surprisingly, I was put into the class. And so I attended Largo High School Excel Magnet program for most of the day. And then for 2 periods of the day, I attended my vet assistant class at Carew County as Seminole, which was a huge out of comfort zone situation for me because I actually used to be afraid of dogs and most animals that weren't my own. So I've really grown so much since then. I was kind of lost and wanted to dance professionally. That's when one of my art teachers said, "Have you ever considered teaching ag?" And I was like, "I don't know." And eventually I was like, yes, okay, this is what I want to do. And I was eventually recruited by Penn State for veterinary science, but I didn't really want to do that anymore. So I jumped on the ag ed bandwagon and also decided to get a dance degree at the same time. So killing 2 birds with 1 stone. My teaching philosophy kind of revolves around this big statement on a mission to protect the tradition that I became obsessed with my freshman year of college, because I think it's important that as we grow and change and advance, that we still look back at our traditions and keep some of those important ones still active. My main goal through my teaching is to have a lasting impact on my students and to instill passion for learning, for discovery and learning, just like my eye teachers did. I also am a big believer of independent learning, and that independent learning often leads to moments of self-discovery, which leads to passion and motivation with excitement and growth. And lastly, engagement in the material, which is why I think I enjoyed my eye classes so much. And as we're preparing to go into the classroom for student teaching, it's important to have our expectations right up in front, day one. And so these are my expectations. And for me, the biggest one is honesty. I think it's so important to be honest. And that if you're in a situation where something goes wrong and you're just honest about it up front, it's going to go a lot better than if you're not. I've also been known as a Rotary kid, which means I grew up in Rotary. And so one of the things I've always wanted to incorporate in my classroom is a 4-way test, which is something I live by. And it's a really easy 4-statement, yes or no question that kind of just help you figure out if this is the right path to go down in any situation. And that's really helped me in my life. So I want to incorporate this into my classroom. Next, we're going to talk about consequences. These are things that I hope I never have to enforce, but I know, unfortunately, I probably will at some point. I just want to point out that my 3rd offense, instead of going straight to a referral, which is typically what people do, I want to give that student that one last chance to make it right. And so instead of writing a referral, I give a student an assigned task. So that could be anything from mucking out a stall to doing any type of chore that needs to be done around the school. And that's like their last chance. And then if they really don't pull it together, the 4th offense is the stricter punishment with the referral and all the other disciplinary actions. I also want to point out that this is not applicable to every situation, and that some situations might be more severe and these offenses won't be able to be applied. So when I wrestled around with what I wanted my ideal program curriculum to look like, because I really enjoy all aspects of ag. But as you can see, I really only have veterinary science on there. And that's because throughout my college journey, I've realized that I really enjoy and thrive in a niche type environment. So for me, my ideal program would be a multi-teacher veterinary science program where the ending result would be a Florida veterinary certification or veterinary assisting certification. And I made that decision based on that's where I felt like I can make the most difference in kids' lives. Building off of my ideal program, I would love in my ideal program to have a veterinary science lab space where students are able to do TPRs, weekly examinations, and to practice skills, because at my ag program, we really didn't have an indoor space to practice all these skills such as small animal handling and all that type of stuff. And so often you'd be trying to learn how to handle a rabbit and the rabbit would get away and you'd end up chasing him around the field. And so I just really envisioned this big, nice laboratory with examination tables and microscopes and places to view x-rays. Another thing we got to do this semester is our $15 project. And so for my $15 project, I really wanted to focus on a fundraising idea because I think that's something that chapters really struggle with. And so I came up with this really inexpensive wreath that can be made around the holidays. And something that's really popular right now is these DIY classes where it's basically like an adult arts and crafts session where you get to be instructed on how to make something and you get to take that project home. So I think that'd be a great way to have some fundraising for an FFA chapter. So integrating SAE into the classroom. I struggled with this one because I came from a chapter where the rule was you couldn't really work on SAEs in class, which I found to be kind of crazy. And so my idea of trying to get students involved in SAEs and really excited about them is every day at the beginning of class, I'll pick a different student and at random, and I'll have them share how their SAE project is going. Now, some of you might be saying, whoa, you're putting them on the spot. How is that going to go? Actually, most students are very eager and excited about their SAE program, so it's not really hard to get them talking about it. But just in case, I do have these guiding questions right here to help guide those students who don't really know what to talk about. And lastly, we've got to finish the 3-circle model and integrate FFA into the classroom. And so the way I thought I could do this is by having an FFA Friday. And so every Friday at the start of class, we'll spend some time talking about FFA. And this can be through member stories, FFA history, which is often there's often not enough emphasis on that. Upcoming events and all the details that go along with that. Contest results and celebrating, our members and their accomplishments. And lastly, FFA members in the news. So if we have any members who have been in the news recently, just celebrating their accomplishments. So how would I market the program and recruit new students? I would do this in 4 ways. First, I would develop a relationship with community organizations such as Rotary clubs, Kiwanis, and service clubs. I think that those are so important in our community, and a lot of people who are very high up in the community are a part of these. So it's a great way to open new doors and to market your program. Next, I would publish 1 article a month in the local newspaper, newsletter, or community magazine. I think this is a great way to reach out to our older demographics within our community because they really enjoy reading those types of things. And a lot of them are retired and looking for ways to support youth in our community. So this is a great way to reach them and say, here's how you can help. Third, I would establish a strong presence on social media. So a lot of times FFA chapter reporters are given jobs of making newsletters that are internal, that are within the program. I want to expand that and make it a social media way. And so students really get to engage in social media and get the word out to our community on what we're doing and reach that younger generation of middle schoolers who are looking for high school to go to. And then lastly, I would do a student of the month that would be published in the newspaper on a monthly basis with a picture and a little blurb about what they did to accomplish student of the month. Community involvement and integration. So for me, the main goal is to develop a strong presence in the community through a variety of ways. For me, it's mainly, I think community service is so important. I think that when you get out into the community and you really start working hard and showing how much you care about your community, that's when you start getting recognized for being a part of the community. Next, I would partner with other organizations like 4-H, Rotary, Boy Scouts, and Girl Scouts. I think this is a great opportunity to expand the knowledge of ag to our youth within our community. So we could do different informational sessions for the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and maybe even help them earn a badge. Lastly, I would create a community-based unit. I've actually had this idea since high school, but it was never able to be integrated. So we would partner with a local elementary or middle school and have students take the things they learned in class and develop lessons that they can teach these students. When I was in high school, we did an ag literacy day where we went to elementary school and we read them books, but the books had nothing to do with ag. And I was like, we're really missing this point to educate youth in our community. So that's a way to fix that. Phase 2, what experimental education opportunities have I engaged in? So first I want to talk about a little bit about some coursework that I've encountered here at Penn State. The first class that I think was super influential to me was Parliamentary Procedure with Dr. Foster, where I got a certification, where I became an accredited parliamentarian with SAEP. And when I came to college, I had very little knowledge on the proper way to conduct meetings with Robert's Rules of Order. And now I'm just like so passionate about spreading my knowledge about Robert's Rules of Order to other organizations. Next, I took a wildlife and fisheries class, which I actually learned so much in this class because I am from out of state. And when I say out of state, I mean really out of state. So completely not even in the same region. And so our wildlife and fisheries are much different than Pennsylvania. So I learned a lot about how different they are and a lot of new things that I wouldn't have learned if I hadn't taken this class. And lastly was fundamentals of acting. So you might be wondering, Emily, what the heck? That has nothing to do with agriculture education. But in this class, I feel like I really got the confidence I needed to stand up in front of a crowd and talk. I'd kind of been in a rut where I was really nervous all the time and couldn't really get out in front of people. And I also got some assignment ideas. And so we had this one assignment where we had to pick a current event in the news and a newspaper article and create a skit and show how important that current event is through the use of a skit. And it was kind of goofy in some ways, but it was also really influential because guess what? I will never forget that experience. So I kind of want to try and take that into my classroom in the spring and try and do an activity similar. Some academic parts that have also impacted me as an agriculture educator. I'm an accredited parliamentarian through SAEP. Like I said before, I learned so much through that class and I'm walking away with a great certification. I'm also a dance major, which has really taught me the workload I can and can't handle because if you know anything about the two majors, dance and agriculture education are two of the most time-consuming majors. And so I really had to figure out how much I could really handle at one time. And so I'm figuring out that now before I get into the classroom. And I think that's making me more well-rounded for the classroom. Professional development events. This year we had the great opportunity to attend this Second Mile series. And at first I kind of dreaded it because it was late at night and we were sitting in front of Zoom and we've been sitting in front of Zoom all day. But every single time I forced myself to get on there, I learned so much and I really enjoyed it. And I can't wait to continue this series during student teaching. So some other experiences I've had, kind of have them in chronological order here. My first experience with teaching other children is through Indian Rocks Family Sailing Association as a senior staff member. There I was able to really help run the program and teach kids how to tie knots and how to sail and really just get experience on how to juggle it all. Next I have Florida State Fair Swine Show intern in 2018. There I got to really learn the behind the scenes of how the swine show works. And so now I feel so much more prepared to take my students to a show like that because I totally understand everything that goes into it from weeks out until the day of the show. Next, I was a lifeguard at Country Day Schools. I did this a couple summers ago, and I think it really helped me kind of rein myself back in as an educator because I'd been working with older kids, and in this program I was working with a lot of younger kids, and so I learned a lot more patience and how to tolerate things that are really frustrating and kind of keep that all under wraps. And lastly, I was a Florida State Fair Swine Show intern again this past year, and this was really a great time to learn the last things I hadn't learned the first time around and really spend some time with my ag teacher who is pictured in both of these pictures, and also get to know Mr. Thomas Sturgis, who I was hoping to be student teaching with at the time and who I am now going to be student teaching with. So diversity. I grew up in one of the most populated counties in Florida, and I went to school with a diverse amount of people, and I didn't really understand that there was still a racial issues in America until I came here to Penn State and was exposed to them and was told about, here's the issues we still have and we need to be better. And so I'm really thankful for all of that, and I've really learned a lot through all of the things that Penn State has taught me in terms of diversity. And I really am excited to continue my education on diversity, because I think it is important in terms of accepting everybody into our classrooms. Phase 3, how am I prepared to maximize my student teaching internship opportunity? So a little bit about the program I am going to be student teaching at. I'm going to be student teaching at Durant High School, which is a 3-teacher program. The 3 teachers are Mr. Thomas Sturgis, Mr. Timothy Cribbs, and Ms. Brittany Coleman. There are 150 students and 130 FFA members, which is huge. I was so impressed by by how big their chapter was, because I came from such a small chapter that we would go anywhere from like 25 members to 30. And so just the amount of things they're able to do with this amount of members is crazy. And as you can see listed right there, they take on a lot of CDEs. They are doing 17 CDEs, which I just found mind-boggling. And they are successful in so many of them. And so I was really excited to learn about what they are doing to be so successful. And actually, they just won the state citrus CDE, so that's really exciting. They get to go to national convention for that. And I was really just blown away about the diversity of their program. So there's not really much that they don't teach. They don't have a veterinary science program, but they do have an animal science program, and they are teaching so many different subjects that they really kind of cover it all, and they're a really well-rounded program. So the facilities at Durant High School are so unique, and so I don't know how to say it. So they're just so Florida, They have a huge ag mechanic shops with a bunch of welding stations, a plant nursery where they're able to do some plant sales, a strawberry field, which is a great source of income for their FFA program. They have a barn where their students are able to keep their SAE projects, an orange grove, which is not as common in Florida now because of citrus greening, so that's pretty exciting. They have a few pastures for their cattle, and a forestry land lab. So I kind of struggled with keeping all the dates I had organized for student teaching. And the best way I came up with it was by making a monthly calendar for all of the different days that we're going to not be in the classroom. So this is an example of that for February, and I have one for each month of student teaching. And then for my units, this is the type of unit schedule I have. You can see where I'm observing and where I'm teaching, and the unit names of each one, along with the dates. And then for a daily lesson plan schedule, I decided to do it by week and then have it divided by class. So you can see where I'm observing and where I'm teaching, along with the date and the week. And then for me internally, I decided to have a unit organization system in Google Drive. And so for each unit, I have a folder that opens up and it looks like this inside. So it has lesson plans, a folder for lesson plans, a folder for PowerPoints, a folder for resources, and a folder for worksheets. And then the one that's not in a folder is my unit plan. And so it really just makes it easy to access anything at any time. And then lastly, I want to talk a little bit about my strengths. So I'm really detail oriented, and I think I can kind of contribute that to being a dancer, where you're kind of forced to be really, really detail oriented. And so that's really great when trying to help students improve upon their CDEs or upon their work in any manner. In fact, I just visited Durant High School this past Monday, and I was able to help them with their Creed speaking runoff. And so they had 3 students who were speaking the creed, and we were judging them. And I was able to give them some really detail-oriented critiques on how they can be better, because they were all really good. Like when I say really good, like I had to look really hard for things that they could improve upon. I'm also, along with that, I'm also able to provide constructive criticism that's in a manner that is helpful and not hurtful. I'm also not afraid to admit when I don't know something. So I think that's really important, because we're always learning and we're always growing. If you don't know something, just say it and say you don't know it. So my goals for student teaching this semester is something that I've encountered while doing our teaching lab, is that I'm not really good at leading classroom discussions. So I really want to learn how to lead better classroom discussions and have classroom discussions that are run smoothly and add positively to the learner's experience instead of feeling very stressful and uncomfortable. I also want to increase my confidence in leading these discussions, because I feel like that's part of why they don't go well. And then my next goal is to learn new ways to teach material. So as I've been lesson planning, I've realized that I kind of just fall into this same kind of pattern of like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it in this way. And I really want to try and step outside of my comfort zone and try new methods of teaching during my student teaching this semester. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Emily. If you would please help me in congratulating Emily on a presentation well done. We're going to switch to the question and answer portion. Emily, if you don't mind stopping the screen share just so we can get back to the Brady Bunch. There we go. I'm going to start us off with questions on sort of some of the things you spoke to on that last slide, which is ways to change things up and to be engaging in your lessons. And we know from Rosenstein and First that variability is extremely important for effective teaching for student learning outcomes. And so I would love for you to elaborate a little bit more on what that looks like as a teacher. How do you exhibit variability as a teacher for your students, and describe some ways you can make that happen?
Yeah, so I think variability can be done in a variety of different ways. So whether it's changing the way you're teaching a lecture, presenting the material, or the way that you assess the students after they've already learned the material. And so a lot of times teachers just go straight to test. And so it's important to have a variety of different ways to assess your students, while also maintaining a way that is easy for them to understand.
Thank you. Again, I'll ask the audience to please load those up in the chat box if you have questions, or just make it known that you would like to ask one orally. Our first one comes from your cohort member, Alyssa, who asks, what facility are you most excited to use down there in Durant?
I was really excited about the strawberry patch, because I think that's so cool. I was there last February when they started harvesting some of the strawberries. And so I'm excited to see what that looks like, how that whole process works.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to our faculty panel. Let's see who unmutes first. Dr. Ewing raised his hand first. There we go.
Yes, got the hand in there. All right, Emily, nice job. I'm going to take you back to AE 413 program planning. And, we did a lot with Pennsylvania specific information in that. What I'd like you to do is just think about the chapter 339 evaluation document, or the National Quality Program Standards for Ag, Food, and Natural Resources. And just tell me a little bit about something that you believe, no matter whether you're teaching in Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas, California, what are some of those items that stuck out on those two evaluation forms? Just maybe name one or two that you really believe and understand why they're on there and why that helps make a good program.
Yeah, so something that really stuck out to me was the way that they're using their facilities. So they have a lot of options that can be used. I also was really interested in their great amount in member involvement. So they have a lot of activities that they get to do with their students, and they're really involved in the community and have a really strong FFA alumni chapter that supports them.
Okay, thanks again for sharing.
Emily, your next question comes from your other cohort member, Megan. She says, what's most exciting, or what are you most excited and most nervous to teach next semester?
So I think I'm most nervous to teach. I don't know, I go back and forth on like a daily basis. Right now, I think I'm most nervous to teach the horticulture unit just because it is outside my comfort zone. And I'm most excited to teach the animal science unit because that's kind of something I'm more comfortable with.
Go ahead, John.
Great presentation, Emily. Thank you. And you did a lot of work in framing out your consequences for misbehavior and so on. What are some ways that you can communicate to students ways to prevent falling victim to those consequences?
Yeah, I think it's just really important to stay engaged in the material and focused on the task instead of just kind of straying off into another world and kind of getting caught up with your friends. That when we enter the classroom, we're there to learn, we're not there to play and hang out. And so it's really important to separate those two worlds. And that's kind of the advice I would give my students.
Awesome. Emily, we do have currently freshmen and sophomores and juniors in the program that are on the Zoom call here. But Nina, who asked this question, I think 6 other times, she must be sledding in the snow all day because she wasn't here for Alyssa's presentation either. So Beth's going to ask the question that Nina asked the rest of the candidates.
Nina lives in a pretty rural spot, so she might not have internet. They got 2 feet of snow up there. So Emily, you've had a lot of really diverse experiences with having a dual major. What is some advice that you would give to incoming students as well as our current students that are on here?
Yeah, I think it's really important that you kind of find what's right for you. And so a lot of times when you come into this program or any major, you see the kind of paths that everybody starts going down and you try and go down that same exact path, but sometimes that path is not the right path. And so I think it's really important to recognize that because in the end, you'll be much happier and you'll grow so much more from it.
Thank you. Carson, go ahead.
Emily, fantastic presentation. So teachers are known for being thieves, right? We beg, borrow, and steal a lot of the stuff that we use, and we're good at it. What have you picked up from a teacher in Pennsylvania or a faculty member here at Penn State that you're going to steal and bring back with you to Florida?
Yeah, so that's a hard one. Dr. Curry has told us about his bingo cards for unit assessment, and so I definitely stole that one. I wasn't able to really do the whole 4-cross bingo, but I modified it in a way that was similar and allowed students to pick what they wanted, and I definitely stole that one.
Lauren in the chat asked, do you plan on incorporating things you've learned through your dance major in teaching?
Yeah, I think I do it without even thinking about it, for sure. I talked about in my presentation on Monday I was at Durant and I was helping with the CDE for Creed speaking. And I noticed that I was really picking up on the students' performance of the creed, and so how they stood and what they did with their hands, as opposed to my fellow judge who was really picking up on other things. And so I think I kind of just do it naturally without even realizing it.
That's awesome, Emily. And I would advise you and encourage you to not lose sight of that personality, because that makes you unique and your kids will appreciate that you have other passions besides agriculture. And that's totally fine. And that personality, when it comes out, will be welcomed by your students. Other questions for Emily? Ooh, Nikki has one. She raised her hand.
Yeah, I was wondering, Emily, if you find like anything different between the ag students like in Florida, or kind of what is seen as important in Florida rather than in Pennsylvania?
I haven't had a huge amount of experience with ag students in Pennsylvania in like the classroom setting. What I do know is that in Florida, kids are very passionate about showing their livestock in a way that is almost like being a football player. And so it's super competitive and they can be at a show like every weekend. And so I think that's important to recognize that these students are putting in a lot of work into their projects.
We'll entertain any other questions for Ms. Schultz. Hearing none, in a few moments, we're going to move to the closed door portion of this event where the faculty and I work with Emily on her lesson plans and unit plans and talk about next steps moving forward. You're welcome to hang on for the next minute or so to give any last minute congratulations and well wishes to Emily that you would like. But we appreciate your time here this afternoon and supporting Emily in her journey. And this actually concludes the last of our final presentations for our senior group. I want to thank all of you who were on. I see many faces here that were on multiple presentations, and we appreciate all your support of our candidates in their journeys moving forward. So again, one last congratulations to Emily, which I see lots of emoticons in the audience. Feel free to hang on for a couple more seconds to send those her way. Otherwise, we appreciate your time. We're going to move now to that closed door portion of the event.